You're all very welcome. Fáilte Rómh go léir. This is the first of our question and answer clinics. Really grandiose title is the Travel Summit. And the reason it's called a Travel Summit is you won't get any higher ranking people than the likes of Vincent here and people like that are coming to talk to consumers at Holiday World. This is your show. We'll have maybe 50,000 people coming through Holiday World, the RDS Simmons Court, over the next 3 days. And the reason we have set this little area up is very simple. In the age of the internet, you don't get answers to real questions. You can spend 20 or 30 minutes Googling to find the answer to the simplest of questions, like what gate, what terminal do I go to, what gate check-in desk do I use at a particular airport. And what we are doing over the next 3 days, for those of you who are passing through, is bringing travel experts from different organisations, from different facilities, the hotels, the airlines, and in this case the airport, to answer your questions. It's your show. I'm going to ask a few questions, but remember, it's your show. So we have spotters and we have 2 roaming mics, and as we if you have a question, just put up your hand and we will send the microphone down to you. It is with great pleasure that I welcome the first of our speakers here today. And as it happens, it's also a chance to express my gratitude to Dublin Airport for sponsoring and making possible these sessions. And it's Vincent Harrison, who's Managing Director of Dublin Airport. Dublin Airport not only is the biggest airport on the island, I think 25 million people go through the airport a year now, which makes it nearly 5 times bigger than its nearest rival, which is Belfast International, and then the rest are very far behind. So you have a situation where 60 or 70% of the people going on and off the island are passing through Dublin Airport. It's been a very exciting year for Dublin Airport. You'd have seen in the newspapers growth figures reported earlier this week of about 14%. That really doesn't tell the full story. The real story is that an awful lot of infrastructure has been updated, improved, scrubbed up, passing through Terminal 1, which was a bit left behind because Terminal 2 has been open 5 years now, and Terminal 1 has been scrubbed up and cleaned up, and we've got a beautiful new retail area, a whole load of developments of the food hall. The airport experience has come a long, long way from where we were in 2006, 2007, when we had up to 80,000 people crammed through the building. Vincent will be here to tell us a little bit more about that. A lot else of what's happening is in the signage around you. Dublin Airport are very, very innovative in the development of their app, and the app is now not just what time your flight is landing and what time your flight is taking off. We'll be bringing Vincent in to talk about that, and we want everyone in this room to participate. We want you to tell us, throw any questions you have, what's happening in the future, what the plans are, because if the growth rate that we're experiencing at Dublin Airport continues, it'll set off a series of triggers which will lead to further infrastructural developments.
You'll be invited to the Poland presentation. Please make your way to the pavilion lounge, which is located upstairs. That's all those invited to the Poland presentation. Please make your way to the pavilion restaurant, which is located upstairs.
That's the Poland presentation. Okay, Vincent, I think it's 12 new routes this year. I might have that wrong, but some very exciting things in it.
Yeah, 12 new routes announced so far this year. I think typically this is the busiest time of year in terms of bedding down the schedule for the summer. But we can see other routes arise at other times of the year. But just about now is when the airlines have to lock down their positions for the summer season. So we have a good view as to what's happening over the course of next summer, and we have some exciting additions to the network in Dublin. We see Aer Lingus launching 3 new destinations in the US. 2 of them are currently served by other airlines, Los Angeles and Newark. So what you have there is, from a consumer point of view, added competition and added frequency and added seats on those services. And then in addition to that, they're starting a very interesting route to Connecticut, to Hartford, Connecticut. Not the biggest city in America, but it's located in a very Irish part of North America, in New England, and will give connectivity into places like Cape Cod and Rhode Island and things like that, in a similar way to the really extensive services that there are to Boston.
So we're talking about the west side of Boston, and all of the Connecticut, and probably the other side of New York as well. It's about midway between Boston,
kind of south to west of that region, and obviously north of New York. So big population area. In addition to that, then in North America, we see the new Air Canada service Vancouver. So West Coast.
That's a fantastic.
Vancouver is a fantastic place. It's been. A couple of years ago, I would have talked about our targets in terms of West Coast of America. San Francisco, for business and leisure reason, was number 1. That was the first one that was delivered. Los Angeles, we now have two airlines operating to Los Angeles. Ethiopian started last year, which of course is that great service that.
Right.
So I'm saying the Ethiopian service, of course, is the one that we talked about last year, which also features Addis Ababa at the other end. But now with Vancouver on the West Coast, I think we're really starting to see the coverage throughout America really expanding.
We now have 3 cities on the West Coast. You've got the San Francisco service from Aer Lingus, Los Angeles from Ethiopian and Aer Lingus. We now have Air Canada Rouge going to Vancouver. That's 3 weekly.
Yeah. Then in that general part of the world, we have new services to 2 other destinations, Cancun and Montego Bay in Jamaica.
And they're charter rotations,
they're limited schedule.
So the first time ever to Mexico, guys. This is exciting. Direct flights from Dublin to Mexico, and that's a Cancun service from Thomas Cook.
Yep.
And we have Montego Bay, Jamaica. Budget Travel did it way back in the 90s, I think it was, but we now have it back from not Thomas Cook, from Thomson, the rivals. Erase that from your memory. It's the Thomson flight. It's Falcon Holidays who are operating Cancun and also the holidays in Jamaica. It's a short enough season. I think it's 14 or 16 rotations, but we're hoping to get that extended for next year.
Yeah,
so that's a big deal.
I think the bookings on that have been great, and we'd really expect that was an opening for this year that will really expand when the market has been demonstrated here. And then, we see frequency growth across the rest of our network. I suppose if I was picking out Europe, interesting that we have 2 carriers going on to Athens, both Aegean, the Greek carrier, and Ryanair. So typically what happens is the local communities tend to favour their local carrier. So I'd say we'll see a lot of Irish people on Ryanair and a lot of Greek people travelling to Ireland on Aegean and on each service.
Vincent can't say this, but we get in trouble with Ryanair. But what very often happens is somebody opens a route out of Dublin, and Ryanair immediately open up on the same route, and it's a little bit of guarding their own patch, guarding their own castle. When the Athens route was announced by Aegean, next thing Ryanair come and announce they're going on the same route. But it is exciting. We have 2 flights to 2 separate carriers going to Athens this year. It's going to be great.
But across the network, a lot of our growth last year was extra frequencies on the main cities. We're picking out some of the more exotic or far-flung locations, but Dublin, London, of course, remains the busiest route in Europe, remains the second busiest in the world. We saw fantastic growth on that route last year, which people might say that a route of that scale and that number of services every day can't grow much. It might be a mature market, but in fact our growth rates in London were just as strong as elsewhere.
And is it back to peak, Vincent? What is it, 18 flights a day? Or so, 18 Ryanair and something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have multiple carriers on the different services, so really you're looking at, in summer season we'd have close to 1,000 flights a week to the UK,
right,
of which about half of those are to London. So it's never been easier to get there and to get to multiple parts of London with all of the airports that are covered. And of course, I mean, you mentioned 25 million, far and away obviously the largest airport in Europe, but we're also the third largest airport between UK and Ireland. The two, Heathrow and Gatwick, are larger than Dublin, but Dublin then is larger.
It's ahead of Manchester.
It's ahead of Manchester. It's ahead of Stansted. It's ahead of Scottish airports, etc.
Right. And we've got interesting stuff in mainland Europe as well. Vigo from Ryanair, Montpellier from Aer Lingus. And we've got increased capacity to Helsinki, which is also a very interesting one because that's become a little bit of a hub of people going down to Asia. People don't think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Finnair, a lot of their network from Europe is designed to connect to their really extensive connections with Asia. Helsinki is a bit like Dublin is, really well located if you're travelling east. Dublin is really well located if you're travelling from Europe going westbound. So just like we're picking up a lot of connecting passengers in Dublin to go to North America, Helsinki are doing the same through Finnair to Asia. So we saw that route launch last year, and they've recently announced a 50% increase in capacity. Some of it is point-to-point to Scandinavia, but a lot of it is onward connecting to Tokyo, Beijing, Seoul, other.
And Vincent, are all the route announcements over? Will we, the likes of the big ones, we're waiting for Beijing and places like that. Is there a chance they might be announced for 2016, or are we really looking at 2017 at this stage?
We're always in discussions with customers in terms of new route development, and clearly it's ultimately a decision for the airline as to when to commence a route. A lot of routes start at the start of a summer season or a winter season, the way that the airline industry is shaped. But I certainly wouldn't rule out further announcements during the period as well.
Put up your hand if you've got a question, guys. Anybody wants to, this is our chance. Tell me about the airport, the infrastructure of the airport. The loop is now completely transformed in Terminal 1, isn't it, from what it was?
Yeah, we've done a lot of investment. I suppose just to maybe contradict what you said about not being able to access information online these days.
Yeah.
Our app that we've developed for Dublin Airport and our Twitter feed, which has a human at the other end of it to answer all of your questions. We're really anxious to keep promoting the information that we can provide through those sources. People need information 24/7. They're not phoning into a line that's manned from 9 to 5 as traditionally would have been the case a number of years ago. So having the sort of information that people need, the queue time right at the minute through security, the information that you'll see there. Of course, we love to get feedback as well as to what other pieces of information that people will need. But there's a lot of interactivity on the app now that shows you where your gate is, what you're going to experience on the way, how to get there. And as you said, among the things you'll experience now are completely refurbished and completely advanced retail and food and beverage facilities in Terminal 1. In fact, our retail shops recently, the retail experience in Terminal 1 was voted the best in the world in an industry awards, and our food and beverage, which has more recently opened, I certainly expect we're going to be seeing similar awards for.
Right. What else is on the app? What people really want to know is things like where do I park the car? How long is the security queue? Where's the check-in? Where actually the desk is for check-in? That's on the app, is it?
Yeah. What's happening in terms of your flight schedule. So information about whether the flight is on time or particularly where there's a weather incident or something like that, you can get information.
And you said the gate is on it.
The gate is on the app, so that when you put in your flight number, it'll show you not just what gate you're at, but what to experience as you're going through.
Okay.
And we'll continue to add further features because people's experience of the airport, really it starts when you wake up in the morning at home and you're planning your journey. You're planning whether to get a taxi or park in the car parks. And what to expect when you get there. So it will feature the different parts of your journey to help you.
Okay. So when is rush hour? When is the busiest time? When do the queues get longest?
The busiest time, and the queues don't get longest, but we need to employ more people so that we make sure that they don't. But the absolute busiest time of the day is between. For flight departures, it's between 7:30 and 8:30. So then typically people are arriving an hour and a half before that and processing through. Right. So often when people are on their way to work and listening to the radio in the car, we might have 30% of our business for the day already done by that stage.
And it's got earlier, hasn't it? I know you've employed the security earlier because the peak, that big rush has got earlier and earlier in the morning. Yeah,
well, I mean, one of the limitations that we have is simply the number of aircraft that can take off from the runway in the morning. That goes through a whole process in which the airlines' slots are determined, and of course the airlines have. During the summer, we would have 90 to 95 aircraft overnighting at Dublin Airport. They all want to get away in the morning. It's obviously it's an expensive asset. The airlines want to have them productive, so the quicker they can get away, the more rotations they can do to various parts in Europe and arrive back and sleep overnight in Dublin again.
So it calms down around 9 o'clock in the morning, and then when does it get busy again?
You get different waves then during the day. So clearly, from that first hour, it's really all about departures and getting the flights away. Then the arrivals from other locations, so planes that are based in other places, start to arrive in. So there's an arrivals peak that follows that. Then, of course, you've got your US and travelling long haul obviously brings different dimensions. People have to arrive a little bit earlier. They typically have more baggage. They're utilising the US pre-clearance facility. So that kind of peak really operates between about, say, 10 and 2. And then you get different waves during the day, and of course you get this big arrival peak back in the evening when all the planes are coming back late.
And what's that, around 6, 7?
No, more like 8, 9.
8, 9. So you've really 3, 4 waves during the day?
Yeah, but I suppose what we're seeing as both the demand has increased, and of course as constraints on capacity, we're seeing that flattening out across the day. So the day is starting to fill up. Pretty much we're operating not flat out throughout the day, but we don't get periods to really relax during the day either.
And the US CBP, there's been big developments on that. You've got far more capacity now, and it's been a lot easier with terminals to get through. By the time you arrive at the US CBP officer, most of the work is done.
I think with any of those sort of processes, technology and self-service is going to be the answer rather than throwing more people at things. We had more CBP officers deployed. But anybody that's used the facility will have seen that the booths that are there to essentially complete the activity, for the vast majority of people, it just tells them you're free to go. You still have to eyeball the officer pretty much and work your way through. So streamlining any of those facilities is critical to just
it's
continuing
fantastic.
to grow.
The conversation with the officer is down to just a very, very brief hello. It's fantastic.
So believe it or not, we had in December we greeted the 1,000,000th user of pre-clearance. And that's 1 million people going out in that direction through there for the 12-month period.
That's a big advantage of Dublin. Are you worried that it's been extended to other cities across Europe? That they're not going to get US CBP?
Yeah, we're not worried. With anything that's got a lot of benefit like that, particularly for the US side in terms of their ability to process, it's inevitable that it will be expanded to other parts of the world. We just want to make sure that even after it's expanded, we're still the best facility in the world, which even our colleagues in the US and CBP who bring all of these new applicants to see it are happy to give testament to it.
Anybody with a question? There's someone here on the second row here.
As a very, very frequent user of Dublin Airport, the only problem or complaint that I have on an ongoing basis is coming back into the country, that at certain times the queues are just massive. And everything else in Dublin Airport I just love. I love being there, I love passing through it. But it's the one thing, and I know it's not necessarily a DAA thing, it's the police, but I do think it's something that could be improved. It would be great if it was at certain times.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for your frequent business. And, we wouldn't have 5 times the population of the country coming through the airport if people weren't coming really, really frequently on business and for leisure. I won't give you the stock answer that immigration is run by the Department of Justice and it's not to do with Dublin Airport. Technically that is the situation, but with all of the stakeholders, and there are multiple agencies that work at the airport, our job is to help them to coordinate their activities, to tell them when people are arriving so that they can adapt their own rostering and their own resourcing, and to give them the space and the facilities. What has happened in the last year is that there has been a dramatic improvement and change in the immigration process in Terminal 1, where both automated machines, not enough of them yet, but there's further work there, have been deployed, but also the civilianization process has been completed. So last year, all of the
civilianization is an amazing word.
All of the immigration.
The guards aren't doing it anymore.
Was run by the guards as a Garda activity. The advantage for the state is no great benefit in having a lot of guards tied up sitting behind booths when they can be working out in the communities in the street. They've hired within immigration, the office called INISH, have hired civilians to take most of that front end work. That process has been completed in Terminal 1. It's yet to be completed in Terminal 2 and will be this year. And that's that's deploying the right number of resources.
And will that solve the queues, Vincent?
There are a lot of things that will solve queuing. Some of it is data and making sure that everybody is operating to what's happening real time. That's where we can help a lot. Some of it is deploying the right people at the right time, as opposed to perhaps rostered over a normal regular day.
Right, okay.
Again, the peakiness, the arriving in late in the evening is when you need to roster. So everybody needs to play their part in terms of the experience, but it's an area where we're very focused on.
Is it my imagination, or is it a bigger problem in Terminal 1 than in Terminal 2?
No, I think people experience it at different times just because of the coincidence of flight arrival times.
I noticed there are no machines in Terminal 2.
Flights arriving from particular destinations that may be high profile in terms of customs activity and the need to watch for them can unfortunately coordinate with the flight that you're getting off, and you'll see some backing up there. Clearly, we all know that immigration into Ireland, the refugee situation, and of course other security circumstances, all of those need to be monitored. So we're very conscious that the state authorities have an important job to do as well.
Yeah, I've done the 3-hour queue in Miami coming into North America, so I don't think we've ever hit anything. But
one of the things that we've done, and again, not just on the app, but people will see screens on the wall in terms of our own security process showing the time that things are taking at the moment, and also now in the immigration area. So as you're coming through from the flight, you'll be able to see what time, or how long it's taking to process. And that's one of the most important things around queue management. If people know and can expect what's going to happen, then they're a lot more comfortable with the experience. It's the unexpected. Is there going to be a queue around the corner? I don't know. How long is it going to take? That's what causes people a lot of stress.
Your own security queues are very heavily regulated, so that if it reaches a certain level, I don't know what it is, that you have to take action and open. Well,
there's an actual financial penalty if our security queues exceed 30 minutes, and that we view as a very much an outer limit, and that would hardly ever be the case over the last number of years that they would extend to that length of time. But so that's the length of time where we actually causes us financial pain. But the average queue time across the year is under 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Yeah.
And when it reaches about 20, you get jumpy. You guys get panicky.
Well, it's a constant issue in terms of rostering to make sure that the right people are there, the lanes are open.
And my understanding is there's no regulation of the immigration, because that's it's a Department of Justice issue, so there is nobody regulating.
There's no formal service level that
I'm taking up all your time, but put up your hand if you've got questions, guys. Somebody got it. Oh, there's somebody here in our third row.
I have a question. When somebody goes through with spare parts and you bleep on the security, which is quite common.
Could you say it again into the microphone? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. I am somebody who has spare parts, hips, and I bleep at every single time I go through the airport. That is a security thing I can understand. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right, but my bags have gone through, and if I have to come back out again and go back through that again, and I are asked to put a piece of jewellery on the opposite side, which has happened to me in Dublin, you're trying to watch your jewellery and your bags, where I think there should be more assistance or an open lane for that, for people with that sort of situation.
So it's a hip, is it?
It's hips or arms or whatever.
Anything that'll set off the machine.
Yes, and I can understand security has to be tight.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
And the other issue you're raising is that once you're caught up with anything like that,
yes,
your valuables are now vulnerable.
They're gone anywhere.
On the other side.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if there's a comment you can make on it, Vincent. Do things go missing in security, and is there
from time to time, in fact, we find throughout the airport there are often lost articles. They, in themselves, these can cause, of course, a security issue because they have to be dealt with. But it is not something that we would be terribly conscious of. That the vulnerability of items as people are going through. Typically there are a lot of people around, but there are also a lot of our staff around that are monitoring that the right tray is being reunited with the right person, because that's part of the security process itself. I certainly have and you're not the first person that has mentioned the issue around people, as you mentioned, spare parts that do cause the machines to go off. I think there's certainly more that can be done within the broader security regime to perhaps provide people with kind of permanent identification, so that those sort of things are known and are tested, and you don't have to be screened every time for that type of issue. A lot of the screening and security protocols effectively are determined by Europe rather than Dublin Airport ourselves, and we implement them. But those passenger enhancements are certainly the sort of things that we try to feed into to improve the journey. obviously people with greater levels of disability. We have a whole passenger with reduced mobility, PRM as it's called, escorted service, where again people need to be assisted through the airport, and again that's something that we get very strong positive feedback for how that's managed.
So is the solution to people with spare parts to opt for the escorted service? Is that
not necessarily, but I think among the things we continue to look at is the ability to use more dedicated lanes for families, for people who perhaps are choosing to go through a bit more slowly and can do that in more comfort in certain lanes, perhaps are less concerned about the speed that they're processed, but also don't want to be holding up other people in the line. So, those are things that we continue to work on. We're completely refitting our security machines now to have longer lanes, longer queue lengths, so that and in fact that they operate automatically rather than the ones where people are pushing in and out the tray. So the tray comes back automatically. It's an area of continuing advancement at some levels, but also continuing requirements for further security that are brought about by the sort of incidents that happen around the world.
We have a 5-minute warning, so anybody wants to come in with questions, please do so. I'm happy to continue to ask the questions. Is somebody here in the second row here?
Thank you. Would you like to comment on employment and job opportunities at the airport, please?
Absolutely.
Jobs. It's subject close to Vincent's heart this week.
Yeah, well, just last week we announced, along with the growth that we've experienced, that growth directly for our own company has added 350 jobs, of which about half of that we've recruited already, and the other half are coming on stream. Those roles are primarily in the frontline activities, so security processing, the customer service, other elements of customer service activities. All of the information in terms of recruitment and application processes are on our website and open to all to apply. We had a whole new fire team recruited last year, which was the first time in many years that we recruited a whole cohort of fire crew to be trained. Dublin Airport is a very attractive place to work. I know that when we were recruiting for the fire service jobs, of which there were about 15 employed, we had over 3,000 applicants for that.
3,000 applicants for 15 jobs. And you've got premium services. You can buy, obviously, lounge access in the Anna Olivia Lounge. You also have a premium services area where, if you're going on honeymoon, you can get an escorted service to the aircraft, effectively, isn't it?
Not just on honeymoon, but yeah, it's a popular time. Platinum services is what we would call an airport within an airport. So a facility where, with its own lounge, with its own security processing, and a car to deliver you to your aircraft or on return. It's clearly a small but very popular part of our service, and it also is where things like state visits and the arrival of presidents and kings and queens happen.
Yeah. And tell me about the car parking. You're advertising short-term car parking. Is that the short-term car park is quite expensive? Is there a deal going? Are there deals you can get for that?
I don't think the short-term car parking is expensive at all. But we've actually,
if you're staying for a length of time,
we've done a significant expansion of our car parking, of our short-term parking facilities at Terminal 2. We added a number of levels to that because business was so strong. We have a multiple options in terms of parking for long stay and for short stay. We also sell all of our car parking on the web, and really depending on the booking time, depending on the duration, there are a variety of excellent deals that people can have, and we also sell that not just on our own systems but through the booking engines of our airlines, so that when you're making your booking you can also then choose to complete the arrangements and book the car parking.
That's on the app as well.
It's The facility is available from the app, but it's also available effectively if you book through Aer Lingus or Ryanair. In your normal booking process, you'll have the option to book the car parking as well.
Anything else to say? The second runway, parallel runway, sorry, there is 2 runways, but the third runway, the parallel runway, the planning permissions in place, will that be happening anytime soon, Vincent?
It's under investigation in terms of planning. It's a question of when, not if, but like everything large infrastructure, we want to get the timing right, and probably the bigger constraint right at the minute is just, as I mentioned, the number of aircraft that are being parked, and making sure that the airport continues to have the capacity to grow as it has done over the last couple of years, and where the Ryanair are, the 100 gates, you're adding gates down there. We're adding further parking stands beyond that Pier 1, as it's called, that pier that people will typically associate with Ryanair, but other airlines use it. But it's the airport capacity is a question of continuing to add pieces of capacity just in time as we grow. I know everybody will have known we had one major investment in Terminal 2, but the rest of the spend is much more incremental. We typically spend something like €100 million a year between both new assets and maintaining assets. We have a huge area. The current main runway will need an overlay, which is essentially recarpeting it over the next year or 18 months. So there's an enormous amount of activity that's going on, an awful lot of it in the dead of night when the aircraft aren't using it and people have access to those areas. So, the work goes on 24 hours a day at the airport.
And can I take the A380, Vincent?
Technically, yes, we can,
yeah. The segregation of where 200 gates, where CityJet and airlines like that are, that's going to be segregated soon as well, is it?
Yeah, we're working on a project around that, just in case people aren't aware. That the 200 gates are where, if people use flights there currently, you need to go through anti-pass back doors, so once you're through to that area it's difficult to come back out. That's another project that we're working on.
Thank you, Vincent. We've overstayed the time. I really appreciate your valuable time. Thank you for coming along and asking questions, and
thanks, Owen.
Thank you.
And we're delighted to sponsor these talks over the next few days, so encourage people to come back and hear plenty of interesting speakers.
Your sponsorship much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, it's on to get very cold now. We're going to get ski and snow is going to descend upon the stage. So thank you very much, Vincent, and thank you, audience. Thank you, everybody.